Hi, my name is Dr. Vic, and today I'm going to be sharing with you 3 ways that you can align and find the podcast that truly have the audience of who you want to speak to really expand your message and align with an audience that's looking for someone like you. Before I dive in, the first thing I want to share is that, Helen Keller once said that the greatest tragedy to befall a person is to have sight, but not have a vision. And so the first thing I want to share with you really doesn't have anything to do with podcasting. It does maybe indirectly, but it's what's your vision for your practice, your business, and your services that you offer? What is the why behind it all? Well, who is the ideal client, or who is the book or the product that you created for, right? Who's that avatar? Now, some may say, why are we even going this route? This is business advice. It is business advice, but it's also important when it comes to a marketing strategy, because if you don't understand this, then what is the purpose of moving forth? We're kind of not really having strategy. We're not being crystal clear on what we're doing. What's your niche and who do you serve? And so the reason why this is so huge is because when you have a vision and you have clarity, it makes choices so much easier to make. Because if it doesn't align, then you don't choose. And if it does align to your vision and your purpose and your niche and your avatar and so forth, then you make those choices because it's like, this is giving me a better chance and better probabilities to have more success in that realm. And so when it comes to, we'll get into why I'm sharing number 1 as we get to 2 and 3 when it comes to this. But to share just a little story about that, imagine you're in Los Angeles, and this is people who don't have this vision. You want to go to New York, but you don't use GPS and you don't use a map. You just go, you know what? I think this is east, right? Here's the ocean. That's the Pacific. So I know if we go away from that, we're going east, and hopefully we'll get to the Atlantic and we'll find our way to New York some way, shape, or form, right? And you hope you get there. And you will eventually. I mean, it's just going to be a matter of time, but it's going to take a lot longer probably than what you expected. Or when you have a vision and you have clarity, that's like choosing the address where we want to go in New York, using a GPS, choosing, do you want to have tolls or no tolls? You want to go the fastest route? You want to take the back roads? What do you choose? And you get to choose that experience along the way because you have clarity with it and you have that experience. And eventually you'll get to New York, and you will because it's processing and showing you the progress along the way. Not one or other is right or wrong, but it just comes down to what's more effective, especially from a business standpoint and from a marketing standpoint when you're looking at a book, a service, or a product. Because if you're sharing something to an audience that's not aligned to what you do, you're just going to keep wasting your time in some way, shape, or form, and you're not going to get the results you want. And it's going to lead to a lot of frustration and aggravation and so much more. So who is the person that you serve? Or if you have a book, who did you write the book for? And what does that book serve? If you have a product, same thing. Who does that product serve, or what problem does it solve, and why? When you get clarity with those things, then we start to move to the next thing, which is going to be number 2, which is all about podcasts. Now we're looking at podcast and podcast hosts. We're going to look and see when you're looking at podcast, what is the description? Right. First, I love looking at the name and seeing is the name kind of cool? Can I pick out on the name that it aligns with what I can talk about? But then I'll look at the description, right? What is the podcast all about? What is the purpose of the podcast? Just like I shared with you, vision is all that you need to have. Well, does the podcast have a vision? Does it have a why? Does it share what its purpose is and why it exists? If it's nice and crystal clear, that's a thumbs up for you because you're like, okay, they're crystal clear on what they do. They said this is who they serve and this is what they're about. Thumbs up, great. Now we go to the next step, which is if they talk about that in their description, go listen to a couple episodes. You don't have to listen to the whole thing. Just skim through some parts or speed up the process. But you want to really listen to see, do they have hosts or guests on? And if they do talking, I know on my podcast, I speak once on my own and then I have guests also. And so is the message aligned to what they share there, the host they have, the ideology they're shared? Does it relate to the description? Now we're looking to see for alignment, right? This is like the whole GPS processing to New York. You want to make sure those things are in alignment. So if they do have that, that's another check off the box to go, this may be a podcast I'd be interested in. Then you want to look at, do they have other guests like you? This is not about competition or anything. It's just knowing that, hey, they're open to having someone like myself on their podcast. And so this is also another plus. And then you also look at, have they also brought up topics that are similar to what you talk about in some way, shape, or form? And if they do, that's great. Podmatch does something great where they have the tags that kind of link people to. This is a great way to tie in what your expertise is at, and it'll link it automatically for you, so you can look and see like, oh yeah, I line up with them and so forth. So that's one of the things. The other things I like to do, it's a little further and it's outside of Podmatch and other things, is check out their socials. Do they post about the podcast? Do they do stories on it? Do they do reels on it? If it's an Instagram or Facebook, do they post on LinkedIn? I want to know that this podcast is not just going to go through the podcast realms. It's also going to get on their social media. That way we're getting even more exposure, and it makes my job easier, because being a podcast host and a guest, it's one of those things where I want it to be easy for me to share it. And if we're linked up already, then it's so easy to share the podcast when it comes out, which I can help them expose their podcast to my own database and my followers and so forth. And so you want to make sure that they're active on Facebook or social media, whatever that choice is that they have. And again, Podmatch is great. There's all the tabs right there for you to check them out. And it just makes your job so much easier instead of trying to searching and looking and all this stuff. And when you do that and you see, wow, they're active on Facebook, thumbs up. So when it's looking at a podcast host, you want to look at the podcast, the description of it. Then do they talk about things that are related to the description that aligns with the podcast? Okay. Then you want to look at, is their social media, are they active? Do they share the podcast? Do they get it out there and put it on their social media? Do they put it on stories? Check out their stories. Do they put it in there? Do you see it show up from time to time? Do they do it in the reels? That way you know that they go outside of that, because it's going to make it a lot easier to also, as a guest, find you, because they'll tag you. And if someone likes your message, they can just click the link and all of a sudden they follow you, and it makes it that much easier, which helps you out as the guest to get your exposure. But at the same token, when you share it on your platforms, which will make it easier to do, then it also helps them to get the access to the podcast and so much more on their end. So that's the second thing when it comes to how to really nail it when it comes to being on the right podcast and so much more. The last thing, we've already talked about this, but he's just doing it in a different way. Because remember, vision was the first thing I mentioned. Well, now this is where vision comes in to making sure the final decision, is this podcast worth being on? Is it the right audience? Who do they serve? What's the demographics, right? Who are the people? Do they align to your ideal client? Do they align to your avatar? Is it the book and the product? Does it align with who they serve? This is huge. This is a game changer, because you can be in a room of 1,000 people and speaking, and if there's only one person there that aligns with the message, guess what? 999 people will not like that message whatsoever, and it's only be that one person that does. Vice versa, if you had 100 people in the room and 99 of them like that message, guess what? You got 99% of that room you won over, because you know who the audience is. I've always been told, know who your audience is in every single aspect. And so when you know the audience, that's when you know, am I the person who they're looking for, right? Because if, let's say, you're a straightforward business person and then you go into a spirituality genre, yeah, those are two different worlds. Unless you're pulling spiritual concepts and bringing it in, those are two different worlds. Or if you're in a crime story talk and you're talking in your artist genre, it's just two different realms. It's not the right audience. So if it doesn't align, it's not going to serve you. Again, Podmatch does a great job. When you look at that bottom right corner of the podcast host sheet, it'll tell you right there who is their demographics and who do they serve. But not only is that great, what I also go is I go one step further. I'll hop on their social media and I'll look and see who are the people commenting on the post if they shared posts. This is why it's important, number two, to see if they're very social on their social media. And then you look and see, are people kind of like, hey, great episode, man, that was awesome. I love that one tip or whatever that's. Look at who those people are. It takes you about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but it's worth your time, because when you look and you do all this work, it's better to do these kind of things and spend the time on this than it is to be on 10, 20 podcasts that's going to take up 10 to 20 hours of your time, where it takes you 5 to 10 minutes to search to say, hey, this is the right podcast or not. To me, I'd rather do all that prep work so that I know for sure, yeah, this podcast aligns with what I do. This podcast has the right audience that I serve, and it's my information of what I can share. They'll get a benefit out of it, and it aligns with them. And when you have all that working for you, this is like the 100 people in the room, you got 99 of them. Okay. I do that because nothing's ever 100%. So at the end of the day, you want to have these three things in alignment. And when you do, it's a no-brainer to go ahead and request to be on their podcast. 99, I would say, I don't have any stats on this, but I would say it's probably very high that you're going to be on that podcast, and it's going to work out for you because the audience is what you are serving, what you your ideal target is, and so forth. And when we have all these things in alignment, it just makes things work out a lot easier and a lot more simple. So again, to recap everything, the first thing is you got to have a vision with the business. What's that ideal client? What's that avatar? The book and the product. Who does that serve? What pain or problem do they solve? Who are those people that you have created this product or the book for? Then when you get crystal clear with that, then you go to the next step and look at podcasts that align with that. Okay. What does the podcast talk about, right? A business coach, you look for a business type podcast. If you're in the spirituality, you look for a spiritual type podcast. If you're in mindset, you look for mindset type podcasts that relate to those kind of things, or what you can share from a mindset perspective that you're an expert on that aligns with that. Then from there, you take it one step further and you go into what the audience is and seeing, does the audience align with what I'm looking for, that I'm trying to help serve, and so much more. When you have all those things checked box off, this is going to be a great podcast to be on, because you're really going to serve an audience that is really aligned with you and your message, which is going to help you get greater exposure. And it's going to allow you to really get your reach out more and serve some of those marketing things, some of those goals that you want to have in your own business, and so much more. So at the end of the day, if the audience, if you don't know your audience, man, you're in a pitch black room trying to hit a bullseye with darts, and you're hoping that you hit. But instead, when you have this clarity, it's like having the lights on. You can have a lot more accuracy to what you want to choose. So that's what I got for you. Thank you for your time.